Just before sunrise, a desperate knock echoed through the lonely cowboy's cabin. Standing at the door was an exhausted Apache man with fear in his eyes and only one request. He asked the cowboy for just 1 hour of his time, promising that after sunrise, he could walk away forever. The cowboy had no idea that saying yes would draw him into a life-changing journey and uncover a truth that would be remembered across the frontier for generations. The lonely cowboy had barely fallen asleep when a loud knock shattered the silence. It was still dark outside. He reached for the lantern beside his bed and listened. The knocking came again, louder this time. No traveler visited his cabin before sunrise unless something had gone terribly wrong. He opened the door with caution. Standing on the porch was an Apache man, breathing heavily after what looked like a long ride through the night. His clothes were covered with dust, and his horse trembled with exhaustion. The stranger's face showed both determination and fear. For several moments, neither man spoke. The cowboy finally broke the silence. "You've ridden a long way." The Apache man nodded. "I have." The cowboy stepped aside. "Come inside." The Apache man entered but remained standing. He refused the water waiting on the table. "I cannot stay," he said. "There is not enough time." The cowboy studied him carefully. "What do you need?" The Apache man looked directly into his eyes. "I am asking for 1 hour." "1 hour for what?" "To save a child's life." The room became completely silent. The cowboy had expected many things, but not those words. The Apache man continued. "An innocent boy has been taken by men without mercy. If we do not reach him before the sun climbs over the eastern hills, it will be too late." The cowboy had never met this man before. He had no reason to trust him. Yet there was something about the stranger's voice that could not be ignored. It carried honesty, desperation, and the weight of someone who had already lost too much. Without asking another question, the cowboy reached for his saddle. A few minutes later, both men rode into the fading darkness. As the first rays of sunlight touched the distant mountains, a sharp crack echoed across the valley. It sounded like a rifle shot. The Apache man pulled hard on his reins. "We're running out of time." The two men urged their horses forward, racing across the open valley toward the distant canyon. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. The only sounds were pounding hooves and the morning wind sweeping across the prairie. As the sun slowly climbed above the hills, the Apache man finally broke the silence. "You deserve to know why I came to you." The cowboy kept his eyes on the trail. "I was wondering." The Apache man took a deep breath. 8 winters ago, my younger brother became trapped during a terrible snowstorm. He was only a boy, weak, hungry, and close to death. The cowboy searched his memory. "I found a young boy near the river one winter." The Apache man nodded. "You carried him to safety." The cowboy frowned. "I never knew who he was." "My brother never forgot." For a moment, neither man spoke. "The child we are trying to save is his son." The cowboy understood at last. This was not about revenge. It was about family. Suddenly, the Apache man raised his hand. He pointed toward a ridge overlooking the trail. 3 riders appeared against the morning sky. "They've seen us," he whispered. The strangers urged their horses downhill. Without hesitation, the cowboy turned toward a narrow path winding through large rocks. "This way." The trail became steep and difficult. Loose stones rolled beneath the horses' feet, but the narrow passage forced the riders behind them to slow down. After several tense minutes, the cowboy and the Apache man emerged into another valley. They had escaped. Ahead, a thin column of smoke rose into the clear morning sky. The Apache man's face turned pale. "They're close." They rode harder until they reached an abandoned wagon standing beside the trail. The ground around it was scattered with footprints. The cowboy climbed down and looked inside. Blankets. A broken toy. No child. The Apache man knelt beside the fresh tracks in the dirt. "They've taken him." He looked toward the distant hills. "And they cannot be far ahead." The Apache man examined the footprints surrounding the abandoned wagon. He pointed toward a narrow trail leading into the hills. "They went that way." The cowboy looked at the steep path ahead. "If they have a head start, We'll need to move fast." They mounted their horses and followed the tracks through rocky cliffs and dry creek beds. Every broken branch and fresh hoofprint confirmed they were getting closer. By midday, they stopped beside a small spring to water their horses. For the first time since leaving the cabin, the cowboy asked a question that had been on his mind. "Why did you trust me?" The Apache man smiled faintly. "My brother told his son about the cowboy who saved his life during the winter storm. He said if our family was ever in danger, there was only one man we could count on." The cowboy looked away. "I only did what I thought was right. And that is exactly why I came." As they prepared to leave, they heard a weak cry for help. A wounded traveler lay beneath a fallen tree, his leg trapped under a heavy branch. Without hesitation, the two men worked together to lift the log and free him. After drinking some water, the traveler pointed toward an abandoned mining camp. "I saw armed men take a young boy there before sunrise," he said. "The child is still alive." The cowboy and the Apache man exchanged determined looks. As evening settled over the frontier, they reached the edge of the deserted mining camp. The buildings stood silent beneath the fading light. They tied their horses among the trees and quietly made their way forward. Then they heard it. A frightened child's voice drifted from inside one of the old wooden buildings. The Apache man's eyes filled with relief. "We found him." The cowboy placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Now we bring him home." The cowboy and the Apache man crouched behind an old stack of timber, watching the abandoned mining camp. A faint light flickered through the cracks of a weathered building. Inside, they could hear rough voices arguing. Then came the frightened cry of the young boy. The Apache man closed his eyes for a brief moment. "My nephew," he whispered. The cowboy rested a hand on his shoulder. "We'll get him out." The two men quietly circled the camp until they reached the back of the building. The cowboy picked up a small stone and tossed it toward an empty wagon across the yard. The loud crash echoed through the camp. "What was that?" one outlaw shouted. Three men rushed toward the noise, leaving only one guard at the door. The Apache man moved like a shadow. Before the guard realized what was happening, he gently knocked the rifle from the man's hands and pinned him to the ground without causing serious harm. The cowboy slipped inside. The young boy sat tied to a wooden chair, his face streaked with tears. "It's all right," the cowboy said softly as he cut the ropes. "We're taking you home." The boy threw his arms around his uncle. For one brief moment, hope returned. Then a loud voice echoed behind them. "Nobody leaves." The outlaw leader stood in the doorway with two armed men beside him. The cowboy slowly stepped in front of the child. The Apache man remained calm. "This doesn't have to end with more pain," he said. The outlaw laughed. "It already has." Before anyone could move, the sound of galloping horses rolled through the canyon. Riders appeared on the ridge above the camp. They were local lawmen who had followed the outlaw's trail after hearing reports of the kidnapping. Realizing they were surrounded, the outlaw leader lowered his rifle. One by one, the others dropped their weapons onto the ground. The sheriff secured the prisoners while the frightened boy embraced his uncle once again. The cowboy smiled quietly. The Apache man turned to him. "You gave me the 1 hour I asked for." The cowboy looked at the child standing safely beside his family. "It was the best hour I've ever spent." As the first stars appeared overhead, the Apache man reached into his leather bag and removed a carefully wrapped bundle. "There is one more thing," he said. "It is time you came with me." The next morning, the cowboy followed the Apache man through a winding mountain trail until they reached a peaceful valley hidden from the outside world. Families gathered as the riders entered the village. Children laughed as they ran to greet the rescued boy, whose parents embraced him with tears of joy. The entire community gave thanks for his safe return. An elderly Apache elder stepped forward and welcomed the cowboy with a warm smile. "You are not a stranger here," he said. "You are a friend." The cowboy was surprised. "I only helped because it was the right thing to do." The elder nodded. "That is exactly why you are welcome among us." The Apache man handed the elder the small bundle he had carried since leaving the mining camp. Inside was a beautifully carved wooden eagle. "My nephew made this before he was taken," the Apache man explained. "He wanted the man who once saved his father to have it." The young boy walked up to the cowboy and placed the carving in his hands. "I will never forget what you did," he said. The cowboy smiled, deeply moved. "I'll treasure this for the rest of my life." As the sun began to set, the cowboy prepared to leave. The Apache man walked beside him to the edge of the valley. "If you ever need us," he said, "you won't have to knock twice." The cowboy climbed into his saddle and looked back one last time. One unexpected knock before sunrise had become a friendship that neither man could have imagined. From that day forward, people across the frontier remembered the story of the Apache man and the cowboy who proved that trust, courage, and kindness could unite hearts long divided by fear. Thank you for watching this story until the very end. Sometimes the greatest moments in life begin with a simple choice. One knock before sunrise, 1 hour freely given, and one act of kindness were enough to save a child, build an unexpected friendship, and remind everyone that courage is found in helping others when they need it most. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more original Western frontier stories filled with honor, adventure, and unforgettable moments. Now we'd love to hear from you. If someone knocked on your door before sunrise asking for 1 hour to save a life, would you say yes? Let us know your answer in the comments below. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family so more people can experience the timeless power of compassion and courage. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next unforgettable Western adventure.